Today, I decided to talk about some topics on fake facts that became a popular opinion in the internet and among different people. And though I chose two examples about these fake stories, and I talked about these examples with my friends in Russian, so it will be interesting for me. It will be a challenge for me to try to talk about them in English, because usually when I try to retell some, let's say, story from English source, I can take some keywords, basic words from this English story, and then use them in my retelling. But because all these examples I read or I heard from some Russian sources, it will be quite challenging for me to find necessary words to explain it. But on the other hand, I have some. This method have some advantages. First of all, it will be like describing my own thoughts in English, without preparations in advance. It's like reading the English text, knowing some keywords from it, and then retelling this text using these keywords is kind of cheating this way. But when I only know Russian words for describing these thoughts, it will be the pure usage of my own English vocabulary when I try to find necessary words to describe the ideas that I don't know how to express in English. Yeah, and try to find the native English expressions for other Russian ideas in any way. Okay, this is the first advantage. And for the second advantage of this stuff, yeah, it's like I try to describe the idea the way the children of the age at the age of 6-7 years old try to describe their ideas in their native language, because they don't know much specific words for that at that moment, and they try to express their ideas, their experience in life with the vocabulary they have. Anyway, let's go with the first fake, and it's kind of simple. In some popular psychological books written in Russian, I read this interesting story that illustrated the way people should never quit on their goal. And the example for this illustration was about Churchill when he gave a speech at some event at some university in England. So there was some event, maybe the students graduated from this university, and let's say the principal asked Churchill to give a speech inspiring these students for their life that for the lives that will come after, that would come after this university, and gave him some advices from his Churchill's experience of life. And every student was prepared. Every student prepared to listen to the very informative, very deep story, and took this advice to their heart, and then followed this advice through the life. But Churchill came to the place where the this microphone was, from which he should speak, and he said something like that: never, 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 never gave up. Then he went to his set, and this was the end. This was his whole speech. And then the students were kind of surprised by the speech because it was so short, and then they understood how deep this was, because Churchill never gave up in his life, and this was his main idea that he followed during all his life, so difficult, when he took Britain out of the war and other stuff, and they understood the depth of this idea. Yeah. So the author, the Russian author, Russian psychologist, who showed this example of being so consistent with his aim, never giving up, thought that this example was quite strong to illustrate the idea of never giving up. And I agreed with him, and I liked this example, though in life it was kind of difficult to never give up, because sometimes it was better to give up at some particular goal or activity, and then continue to participate in this activity, or continue to reach the goal with a new perspective, or maybe with some new tools or skills, because let's say you drive a car and one of the wheels of your car just doesn't rotate. It is stuck in its place, and other wheels rotate. So when you put your foot on the gas pedal, then your car just go in circles around this unmoving wheel, one of four wheels. And if your goal to get to the next city, for example, and you never give up on this goal, you can drive this car in circles around this stuck wheel until you run out of petrol in your car. The better choice will be, for example, get out of the car and repair the wheel, so that all four wheels start to rotate, and then you can get to the city of your goal very quickly with the walking car. Or you can just get out of the car and walk to the city, and it will be quite a long journey, but you will reach the city in no time if you don't give up on reaching it. But you will reach your goal because you found why you couldn't move forward, and then you changed, let's say, the way you approached your goal. Yeah. So never giving up is not the way to reach the goal. Never giving up efficiently with the tools that can take you to that goal, but to do this, it will take time for you. But if you never give up with the tools that can't take you to the goal, you will never reach your goal, no matter how determined you are to never giving up. Anyway, so this was the example of Churchill saying just Churchill having said just this one sentence of never giving up. And then I gave the counter arguments against this idea of never giving up. And when I learned English quite well to understand the audio speech, I decided to find this brilliant Churchill's speech, because it must be recorded somewhere because it was so brilliant, and just listen to the Churchill, because he was the author of this idea. And then I have found some information that that speech never was. Churchill gave a big speech in some university, and during this, let's say, 30-minute speech, he pronounced this idea like never give up, just this, never give up, just these 3 words in one sentence, and then he moved forward. He never emphasized this idea the way these Russian psychologists showed as the example of this persistent in your life. And there was even this big speech recorded somewhere in audio file on internet. And Churchill was famous and is famous for his native British pronunciation, when usually you can't distinguish any word from his speech, because he is so native, fluent, and kind of quick, and he didn't try to be understood but by not native speakers who needed the speech to be flawless, smooth, very let's say distinguished. So I opened this audio file and I tried to get this never give up sentence from this long speech, I think I failed, but it was enough for me, because I decided to me that, and I agreed with some authors on the internet, that this example of showing that Churchill gave this wonderful short speech of never giving up was just a fake, and someone created this fake, and fake started to live on the internet, and lots of authors who didn't try to verify the information, they used this fake as the real fact to illustrate some ideas in their books, and it's not the way the real information should be published in the books. At least the information should be verified and based on some reliable sources. So that's all for the first fake. And talking about the second fake, it's even more interesting, surprising. It's about the one particular poem, or maybe rhyme. Let's say poem, because it's not very long, of some Russian poet of the 19th century, and this poem is in every Russian literature textbook for the 5th or the 6th grade at school. So with this approach to the information, we think, we are sure that the information that are given to us at school is really reliable. Maybe they can't give us all the information, because it could be it can be too difficult for us to understand. At the moment we learn the creativity, the works of some Russian authors of some period of time, but we always think that at least this small part of information that we are given by the authors of textbooks, this information is absolutely reliable, because the Ministry of Education checks these textbooks, and then these textbooks live through different editions. So everything in them must be true. They contain only facts. But I was really surprised that for this particular poem, maybe it's not the case. Maybe this is a huge fake in this school program. So the poem is "Прощай, немытая Россия" by Mikhail Yurievich Lermontov, Russian poet and Russian writer who lived in 1814 till 1841. He lived for 27 years, and he was killed during his exile on the Caucasus, and he was killed by one of the Tsars, I don't know, the guy who walked for the Tsar, and because Lermontov was kind of against the Tsar, this guy killed him on the duel, and it was the direct order from the Tsar to kill Lermontov. Yeah. So what about this "Прощай, немытая Россия"? This is a poem from our school textbooks, I think from the 5th or maybe the 6th grade. But somehow I missed this poem. I never learned it by heart, but I think a month ago, when I talked to my friend on some topics, he recited this story, this poem, and because I knew this first line from somewhere, maybe from I don't know, maybe from some TV shows, maybe from, it is a very famous rhyme, and it is pronounced when someone refers to the way that Russia is not so, I don't know, maybe democratic, not so logical, rational as most of European countries. Yeah, when Russia defies the logic of being kind of going with other countries in some business what market exchanging the resources, because the countries of the world can survive only by communicating to each other and helping each other by playing some role in the process of manufacturing different goods on the market. And when Russia decides that it can survive without support of any other countries from Europe or from America, and use just its own resources and human powers and technologies the way the Soviet Union did, then the people who escape from this regime of Russian government, they recite this poem, and the poem has a very negative something motive towards the country at that poem at that moment of history, when, as most of people think, when Lermontov was put into exile to the Caucasus, where he was killed, and going from Moscow, where he was born and where he lived all his life, to the Caucasus, he wrote this poem. And everyone agrees that this poem describes Russia very well, and it was kind of contemporary at that moment in 1840, when Lermontov moved into the exile, and it's very contemporary now. When people talk about the events that occur in Russia now. But I found some information that shows that this poem was not written by Lermontov. It was written in this poem appeared in the print for the first time in 1871, and it was 30 years later, 30 years after Lermontov's death. And the guys who kind of discovered this poem, they didn't show any writing of this poem made by Lermontov, because all the poems made by Lermontov or Pushkin, they and other famous Russian poets and even writers, they all have the real paper and the writing made by the hand of, let's say, Lermontov. Yeah, like it's like for Mtsiri, we can find his original notebook where he wrote this poem Mtsiri, and there are photos of his writing, yeah, and the experts can identify that these are really his writings, and this poem Mtsiri was written by his hand, and there is no doubt in it, because I think when this poem was written, he said himself that he wrote this, but he never mentioned about this unknown poem of Немытая Россия, and during his lifetime it never appeared. But if it appeared 30 years later, why there was no any writings by his hand on the notebook of this poem? The guy who found it, he said that there is no, that the writing just disappeared in some mysterious way, and the poem was just written by Lermontov, and that's all. And somehow people agreed with it, critics of the time of 1871, and they published it by the name of Lermontov as the author, and later this poem was put into the Soviet textbooks when I think the Soviet powers, the Soviet government wanted to give ideological fight against the Tsar regime, the regime of old Russia. So they used this poem as the sign of rebellion of Lermontov against the Tsar and his regime. Yeah, but contemporary critics and lots of critics of that time, from the moment when the poem appeared for the first time in 1871, they agree that the style of this text does not belong to Lermontov, because Lermontov always wrote so beautiful, so stylish poems and proses that critics believed that he could be the next Pushkin, and he could even surpass Pushkin if he lived for the next 10 or maybe 20 years. And this style of this poem is so bad. It isn't logical at all. For example, in the second part of this poem, there are some lines like «Сокроюсь от твоих пашей». And now people understand this line as Lermontov wanted to hide from the Tsar and his the members of the government, who tried who didn't like him because he was so he liked freedom and liberty and tried to create stories, poems against the current regime. But we understand this pashay as the word that has kind of different meaning, because in reality Lermontov could say like tsarey, because the Tsar was a head of the government at the time of the country, but Pasha was the head of the government of some different countries like Ottoman and Empire. So this is kind of illogical, and it's not like Lermontov's style, putting the wrong word into the poem, into the line. He could say negatively about the government, but he would never use the wrong terms for the government. He would write tsar, but not pasha or something else. And there are different variants of this poem when in this line were used like vajdi or tsari, and they were not good in rhythm with the next line, when the author talks about всеслышащих ушей. So this is the rhyme, пашей ушей. And if the rhyme of всеслышащих ушей, if the line of this phrase is quite, let's say, logical, though it's not, so it doesn't have this style of Lermontov's poems, but the line in between about всевидящего глаза is wrong logically, because the author talks about one eye that see everything in the country. So why he talks about only one eye when people has two eyes, like всевидящие глаза? But when if he used two eyes, глаза, глаз, then his rhyme with the first line, like за стеной Кавказа, will be lost. So contemporary critics agree that the second part of this poem is lacks in style of Lermontov's poems that were written by him during the period of his life, and that has the that have his notebooks with his original writing in them. And of course there is this line of «И вы мундиры голубые». «Мундиры голубые» is a phrase that was never used by Lermontov or any other Russian poet in his in their writings. And usually each poet has his own style, and critics could learn the frequency of different phrases in the poems of some particular poet, and they could get the most common and the most common phrases from his style, because usually the same phrases continue to be encountered in different poems of the same author. But with this «Мундиры голубые», this was not the case, and Lermontov never used this phrase in his other poems. But there is one but there is a theory that this particular poem was the parody satire written by Dmitry Dmitrievich Minaev, who was the famous at the time 1870, the famous kind of poet who wrote lots of satire and parodies for the poems of different Russian poets, and lots of critics believe that he wrote this this particular poem, and it appeared for the first time at the time he wrote it in 1871, and he lived from 1870 to 1890, so it was the time when he lived. But critics think that he didn't write a parody on some Lermontov's poems. It was likely the parody to some particular Pushkin's poem, like for his poem «К морю», where the first line goes like «Прощай, могучая стихия», and the first line of this fake Lermontov's poem goes like "Прощай, немытая Россия." So the first word "прощай" is the same in both lines, and the last rhyme, стихия, corresponds to the word Россия. So the third line about мундиры голубые in this fake poem corresponds to the original Pushkin's line волны голубые. So this explains why the phrase мундиры голубые appeared in the first place, because голубые was the rhyme for the word стихия or Россия, and this Dmitry Minaev just invented this phrase мундиры голубые, and this phrase referred to the political police of that time, of the time when Lermontov lived, and the uniform of this police was made from the blue clothes, so they had these blue jackets, мундиры голубые. And Dmitry Minaev invented this line, and then he used this line once more in his parody on Lermontov's Demon poem, and the demon was flying over the land in the sky in his голубом мундире. So this phrase appears twice. Okay, this phrase appears once in the Minaev's parody poem, but it never appears in any Lermontov's poems or in the poems of any other Russian poet. And it's logical that the one who used this phrase somewhere else is the original author of this kind of fake Lermontov's poem. So Minaev created this poem, and it was published in 1871. It never belonged to the hand of Lermontov, and but somehow it was put into the school textbooks, so each student who learns poems of Lermontov during their school time, except for me, knew that Lermontov has this negative attitude against Russia, but in reality, in 1841, just before being sent to the exile to the Caucasus, Lermontov wrote his famous poem Rodina, and this poem was about describing Russia with all its minuses and negative moments for people living in Russia, but Lermontov wrote it with so much love to every aspect of, let's say, Russian life. He always found the words of love and beauty for some aspects of Russian, I don't know, civilization of that moment, when he could talk negatively, he always talked in positive, loving way about his beautiful, loving Russia. And contemporary critics can't find the way that Lermontov wrote during, let's say, couple of months, this beautiful, loving letter to his motherland, and then this negative, short, bad in rhymes poem, bad in style poem, that kind of put his love in Russia in the negative way. And the only logical explanation that this poem was faked at some point, and was kind of made to be created by Lermontov, so that people could use this great Russian poet as the example of this negative attitude against Russia. And they quote great Lermontov with this poem describing their negative attitude toward Russia, based on some classical literature that we all learn at school. Wow. So nothing will change the basic school program, and this poem will always be signed by Lermontov, so this will be always the fake example of Lermontov's work. But there is an alternative opinion, and people could use their own critical thinking and decide what they think of this poem themselves. The one who wants to kind of have negative attitude against Russia, they will use this as the foundation for their negativity. But the one who believes that it's not Russia and people of Russia is bad, but the political, let's say, regime, the political style of Russia that kind of holds the country with its resources, with its people, from going forward into the progress, into the way that Europe and China went through already. So those who believes in this type of, let's say, thinking, they believe that this poem "Немытая Россия" was just a fake made by some guy, Dmitry Minaev, who was a good parodist and a good satire, but he was not a good poet and good, let's say, patriot of his country. So it's for everyone to decide what is true and what is fake. So this is all for today.